Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's MobileCause webinar on the secrets to email and mobile messaging. Many of you are likely already utilizing email marketing in your communication strategy and have heard all the buzz about the power of mobile messaging. But maybe you've struggled in getting your messages open and read, or you've been curious about mobile marketing, but feel like it might be too techy or time consuming. Well, today we're going to not only show you how easy it is to generate awareness and support with these two platforms, but also help clarify exactly what is and maybe what isn't going to work for you in your messaging. Now, during today's one-of-a-kind webinar, we're going to discuss expert email messaging methods for deliverability, subject lines, layout, and more. We'll explore mobile messaging strategies that create powerful donor connections and go far beyond the fundraising asks, though we'll be sure to give you some effective ways to do that too. Now, this should be a really fun and enlightening discussion, and to really make it so, we want you to participate with us in that discussion today. So please feel free to ask any of your questions about email and mobile messaging by submitting them in the questions box on your control panel. We will take some time to answer them both during our webinar and at the end when we have our Q&A session with our experts. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and as a quick reminder, we will be sending out the recording and the slides to all our registrants afterwards. Now, a little about today's presenters here. This webinar is presented by MobileCause, and as a fundraising professional, you have a million responsibilities and only a few resources. MobileCause is here to help. MobileCause delivers comprehensive end-to-end fundraising software that's easy for you and your donors to use. You also receive hands-on campaign creation and setup from a digital marketing services expert coupled with the industry's best customer support. MobileCause believes 100% of donations should go directly to your cause, which is why we don't charge any transaction fees and have the industry's lowest credit card processing fees. With MobileCause, you can raise more with less time and energy. Now, let me introduce today's exceptional panel of experts here. Matthew Montoya has crisscrossed the country over the last 7+ years to 46 states, helping in person over 13,000 small businesses and nonprofits to better understand how email marketing can affect growth, what design and automation means to their bottom line, and how to rethink their email marketing strategy to meet the demands of today's ever busier, media-savvy audience. In his 17 years in marketing, he's worked on nearly every kind of marketing vehicle around: print, broadcast, social, web, and email marketing. From marketing director for several major newspapers to helping nascent nonprofit grow beyond expectations, and now for 7 years with Constant Contact, he's been on the front lines of today's marketing challenges. Now, Sarah Baker is a digital marketing strategist with MobileCause, where she works one-on-one with nonprofits to maximize their fundraising campaign success. She is responsible for creating and managing fundraising campaigns that have resulted in 4 times more funds raised, with supporting engagement strategy, including copy for emails, text messages, social media, forms, and landing pages, and ensures the highest standards of branding and strategy for her clients. Sarah's works enabled hundreds of MobileCause customers to successfully accelerate and increase their fundraising and engagement efforts. All right, so we really have an interesting agenda chock full of know-how for you today, where our speakers are going to cover these topics here. So we have common pitfalls for nonprofits, how to lay out an effective email, compelling nonprofit subject lines, mobile messaging for communication, and mobile messaging for giving. So before we dive into our email and mobile messaging insights, we do have a quick poll for everyone. So here we have it on screen. Give me a sec here. Let's get it on to your screen so you can do it here, launching the poll. All right, you should have that on screen if you can answer the question. And if you do choose other, Please feel free to share whatever that challenge is through our questions box on your control panel. And let's give it about a minute here and see what kind of responses we're getting. All right, getting a lot of you joining. Good, good. We'll give it about another 10 seconds here. Got most of you having responded. All right, looks like we got a good number here, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that poll. Let me share these results. This is actually kind of interesting on here. So it looks like the majority of you are sort of split between determining how often to send and also creating the content. So it's an interesting take on that. With the next ones coming in as writing the subject line and designing the layout and other in the lower range. So with that, Matthew, what do you think? Do these answers reflect what you've seen in your work?
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me here today, and I'm not terribly surprised, although I would say that I would have expected creating content to probably beat out determining how often to send, but I can tell you, having spoken to so many nonprofits, I know that's a big pain point. In fact, we're going to address it today. And what was alluded to in my biography, I actually worked at a nonprofit for 3 years before joining Constant Contact, and I can tell you that sitting there wondering how often to send and kind of coming up with a good cadence and strategy was something that was challenging for me. So I'm not terribly surprised, and I'm glad to see that it's a concern for you, because, as I said, we're gonna cover it today.
All right, you should have control.
Well, great. Well, again, thanks for having me today, and let's go ahead and just cover everything now. So let me there we go. So what we did is we kind of thought about the typical nonprofit world, and what challenges are you having? And there's not surprisingly some of the things that we polled you about, but a few others. This is kind of a list of things that I've heard nonprofits say to me in my travels, and a little bit out of my own experience of working in a nonprofit. Common challenges I see, I would say that this first one is really, really common. And I can't see you. I don't know what you're doing if you're doing email marketing, but if you are, many nonprofits tend to use their email as an omnibus type communication vehicle. Here's everything in the world going on in our lives, and often that can be too much. We're going to narrow this down and focus a little bit in just a little bit, but just in general, we have to think about the way people are reading email today, right? Not many people are sitting back with a cup of coffee and reading an email like we might have read a newspaper 10, 20 years ago. People are moving very, very quickly. And in fact, one thing I'd encourage you to do as you're developing your email marketing strategy is think about your own behavior. Think about the behavior of those in your office or loved ones. Most people are checking email constantly, but it's a very, very quick transaction. And so one thing that I see a lot of nonprofits do is they build these emails that are saying everything going on in the world. They're a little too long, a little too complex, probably using a little too much imagery. Another item that I often see is that they're using imagery. I see a vast majority of nonprofits using imagery. In fact, many nonprofits have a cause that fits to imagery really well, but they don't link them. They don't link them back to a pertinent page on the site. They don't link them to a donation site. They don't think to link in an image, and an image is actually clicked on more than a hyperlink, because they're very easy to click on. Here's the bullet point around what you said is a common issue for you: not emailing regularly enough. So I'm going to go ahead and jump a little deeper into this particular bullet point, since that's what your poll results said were a big concern with you, is cadence. So one thing that's a little tricky for me is giving broad information, because all of you are different, all of your audiences are different, you're all living in different parts of the world. But in general, many nonprofits suffer from sending too few emails. Many nonprofits I meet, they maybe send them in batches. They have an event or they have a campaign going on. They have a giving event that they're hosting, and they'll email, and then they'll stop emailing for a month, or they won't email for a quarter. What you want to do is find a regular cadence. Now that can be one email a week, that can be one email, no less than one email a month, but you want to have a cadence so that people are used to hearing from you. And I can hear many of you maybe pulling your hair out. I'm having trouble getting content into my email as it is. Unfortunately, you want to find that regular cadence, because if you don't, people will start to tune you out. If you think about the inbox, there's so many emails in there. One thing I really encourage you to do is make people look forward to your email. Give them something useful. One other issue revolving around sending too few emails is that many nonprofits, and I understand all of you are different, many nonprofits tend to only talk about themselves. Here's what's going on in our world. Here's how we're impacting you. You want to try to reflect your subscribers in your email as much as possible. Give them useful information, give them tips, give them tricks, give them ideas, empower them. The more they can see themselves in your marketing and in your email marketing, the more responsive they'll be in all of your emails. Trading lists with sister orgs. So often there'll be nonprofits that have an organization that is in line with the mission, but is not part of the actual organization. And often nonprofits will trade lists. Hey, our organization deals with this, you deal with that, very similar audience, let's trade lists. That's actually illegal. The only way you can email people is if they gave you implied or express permission to email them. Now, implied permission would be that they gave you a business card, or they gave you a call, met you at an event. That would be implied permission. Express permission is they actually sign up for your newsletter. If they didn't do one of those two things, then you really don't want to use that list. Not letting your website do enough of the heavy lifting. And this is a big one. As I said, many emails are so long and so robust and so complex because organizations aren't really thinking about the power of their website. We want to drive people to the website. I'm going to get into that a little deeper soon. And we want to drive them to the website right away, because that's where they're going to spend more time. That's where they're going to consider really pulling out the credit card. That's where they're going to make that transactional decision for you, or decide to attend, or decide to volunteer. Whatever it is you're asking them to do, that's likely going to be where they do it. Email is very fast. We want them in and out of there as quickly as we can. Assuming you need a big list to get started, you don't. A lot of organizations say, oh, I only have 400 email addresses. I only have 200 email addresses. It's not worth me starting. When you get an email address, especially if they joined your list, they went to your site, they joined your list, they called and they gave you their information to join your list, well, that's future donations, right? That's real potential money for you, real potential event attendees, real potential volunteers. Well, if we don't email them, we're not going to get anything out of it. So we want to make sure that no matter what the size of your list is, you're thinking about doing email marketing, because it can start to return really quickly for you. Not utilizing enough communication channels. I see this a lot. Usually more in the social space, where organizations say, okay, well, Facebook's working really good for us, so that's what we're going to really focus on. You want to broaden out your communications channels and your strategy, because not everybody actually, surprisingly, lives on Facebook. Some are on other channels, some are using different vehicles. You want to make sure that you have a good, healthy mix to reach your audience. And another big one, weak mobile email design. Times have changed. Most people are reading emails on their phone. I bet you have checked your email on your phone today. And in fact, I'd be willing to bet that the #1 app you use is your email app. We don't think of it as an app, but it is. And with so many people checking their email on their smartphone, on their mobile device, we need to make sure we're building an email that talks to that audience. In fact, more than half emails, let me go back one. My keyboard's a little touchy. More than half of all emails are now ran on a mobile device, more than half. So if you are doing email marketing currently, more than half your list is going to be opening that email on the phone. On average, people spend 6.3 hours reading around 88 emails a day. Now that can be one of yours. And if you employ some of the strategies that I teach you today, you should see a higher result. There's a little bit of a lag on my screen transitions here. A recent study said that 38% of all online donors are inspired to give from an email. Well, if we think about it, if everybody's checking their email on their mobile device and we put an ask out there, we should see a good return. But almost 40% are going to respond to that email. Think about if we're not doing email marketing, that's 40% we're not getting. So with all that, let's talk about how to lay out an effective email, especially around mobile. Now, many of you, before I get too deep into this, may say, well, but what about the other half, Matt? They're reading an email on a PC or a Mac, or sometimes I hear from nonprofits, well, our audience is a little older, or blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. If you design a good email for a mobile device, if you're thinking a mobile strategy first, you're going to reach that PC, Mac, tablet audience. But the reverse is not true. If we design an email that reads really well on a PC, Mac, or tablet, we may not be reaching the mobile audience. So my first big tip, always use images. Always use images. Images are a really powerful tool. And in fact, the line I always like to use when I'm speaking in public is, well, an image speaks 1,000 words. Well, that's saving us space in our email. We don't have to use the words to explain something. So make sure that you're always using images to explain to people visually what your email is about. Now, that image does also include your logo. You always want to have your logo. You usually want to have that in the top, either the center or the left. That's going to get the most eye impressions. And you should make sure that you're linking your images so that when people click on your logo, they go to your website. When they click on a pertinent image, let's say that we're a humane society, we have a picture of a dog. Well, it should go to where I can learn more about adopting dogs. You want to make sure you limit your images, though. You want to use no more than about 3. Now, that does not include your logo, so technically 4 images. The more images you put into your email, well, the more words you're using, and you're overwhelming your audience. They don't know what to look at. If I'm doing a big campaign where I'm trying to move people to donate for maybe a match, or I'm trying to get people to a signature event, I might only use 1 image besides my logo. That way, that image gets the most impressions possible. And we never want to make an email, and I can't stress this enough because it's so common in nonprofits, we never want to send out an email that's 100% image, meaning that the entire call to action, the story, the hours, the event details, the donation requests, everything is all in this one image. Never want to do that because it can often end up with our email ending up in the spam filter. 650% higher engagement when we use images, and that's just growing the response to our email. My next tip, keep it short. You want to make sure that you keep your email short because of the amount of time people spend in an email. So the average email subscriber on a PC, Mac, or tablet spends anywhere between about 25-30 seconds with an email. On a mobile device, that becomes 5 to 10 seconds. 5 to 10 seconds to reach majority of our audience who's very inclined to give to us. Well, we want to make sure that we do that. And one way you can employ that is keeping your email short as possible. Again, you want to keep your logo high up. You don't want to bury it. You don't want to sacrifice your logo because of text, but you want to keep your text really succinct, about 20 lines of text. That's about a paragraph, right? Now, you might be saying, well, how can I say everything I need to say with 20 lines of text? Be more robust on your website. Drive them from your email to your website where they can learn much more. You're going to get benefits there because not only are you driving them to your website, and that's going to help you with traffic, and they can find out other things that you're doing, but a tool like Constant Contact and our ilk track that. We tell you who clicks on what. Now you have an audience that you actually have a list of that you know is interested in doing X, Y, or Z because they told you, because they clicked on a link. That's really powerful because if I know that this group of people out of my larger list is interested in this one particular thing, then I can target and market that group of people. Make sure you keep it as short as possible, 20 lines of text or less, and drive them to your website. My next tip is be consistent in your color choice. Color really matters when it comes to email marketing. Now, I meet many organizations that change their color scheme every single email, or they change their color scheme to celebrate special events or holidays. You want to stick to your brand colors regularly because color is represented in an email. Brand is reflected in an email 80% by color. So whatever your brand colors are, you want to make sure that that's reflected in your overall look at the email. If you look at these 2 email examples, the Hearts and Tails Animal Rescue, it's got that teal color. That's carried through. The teal and gray is carried through. Now, the other reason we want to make sure that our brand colors are consistently in every single email is because that logo sometimes won't be there. I'd be willing to bet you've gotten an email where the image is blocked and you have to download the image. Well, the logo is an image. We want to be careful and make sure that our brand comes through in other ways in case that logo gets blocked. My next tip, make it personal. If you have the ability to, and then with the Constant Contact you can, add a person's name or other pertinent information within the email, much like a mail merge in Microsoft Word. the more you can actually make it about them by literally putting in their name or other pertinent information, the more they'll pay attention to it, because I hate to tell you this, most human beings are selfish and we pay more attention to things when our name's on it. When you put their name in, it's reflecting not only what you're saying to them, but it's literally making it part of their world. They're thinking about them. They're thinking about with them, and with them is what's in it for me. When somebody's opening an email, they're thinking very selfishly about, well, how does this work in my world? Well, by putting their name in there, we can see better results. Now, the name doesn't only stop within the body of the email. Many tools, Constant Contact and our ilk, allow you to personalize your subject line. You can literally put a person's name in there, which is going to help you increase your open rates. So you can see a higher percentage, 11% higher open rate, and a 27% higher click-through rate, meaning they're clicking on links in the email, going to our site, going to donate, going to do whatever we're asking them to do when we personalize things. My next tip: use buttons instead of links. Now, many tools, including Constant Contact, have migrated away from using those old blue hyperlinks to buttons. And in fact, you see an example of 2 buttons on my screen in that email to the left. They're down towards the bottom. Well, buttons are really powerful because they're, firstly, easy to click on, right? So if we think about a small screen, a hyperlink, I may have to pinch the screen to click on one of those blue hyperlinks, but a button's easy for me to click on with my thumb on a smartphone. Well, that's really important since so many people are reading their email on their mobile device. Remember, your email is not the destination. It's a billboard for the destination. People are going to be in and out of that email really quickly. If we make it really easy for them to get in and out of that email really quickly, well, we're going to see higher results. Now, another key thing here is that it is bulletproof, meaning that even if images are blocked, that button will never disappear. We want to get them in and out of that email as quickly as possible. Big tip here, folks. If you haven't been able to tell already, make sure it is mobile ready. So what I've talked to you about so far is building an email that's thinking mobile first. But most tools, especially Constant Contact, since I work at them, mobile responsive, meaning that you can build one email and it will look one way, great for a PC, Mac, or tablet, and it will, if it should land on a mobile device, redesign itself for you to be mobile optimized. That doesn't prohibit you from actually thinking about how much content you put in, because if you make a really long email for a PC, Mac, or tablet, well, it's going to get even longer when things when the mobile responsiveness happens and things start stacking on top of each other. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about the content and the amount of images and text we use, no matter what. But be rest assured that if you use Constant Contact, it's going to redesign itself for you based on the device. The reason why I'm so serious about mobile first is the numbers there at the bottom of the right-hand side. 80% will just delete an email if it doesn't look good on a mobile device. 30% will unsubscribe. So if I can kind of call back to where I started, every subscriber we get is worth potential donations for us. It's worth potential attendance. It's worth potential volunteers. Whatever we're trying to do, every email address represents that potential. But if they're deleting it, then we're taking that potential and we're throwing it away. And if they unsubscribe, they'll likely never come back. So be thinking about these strategies every single time you sit down to build an email. Now, did not surprise me that you polled really high on subject lines. It's a challenge for everybody. It's really hard, especially when you're building that email and it's it's 5 o'clock, you gotta get it out, to build a compelling subject line. So let me share with you some of my favorite subject line tips. First, most people assume that the subject line is the reason an email gets opened. It is not. It's who sent the email. If you think about your own experience in the inbox, you're probably going up and down your inbox, scrolling through, seeing who sent you the email, and if you recognize them and you know they have been useful to you, then you slow down and you read the subject line. Okay, well, I love this person. What are they telling me this week? So we need to make sure we use a from name that's really recognizable to our audience. Now, the reality is most nonprofits do a pretty good job of this. It's the for-profits that are usually kind of bad in this case. But we want to make sure that we're sending an email from a name that's recognized. And one thing I've seen in some nonprofits is sometimes an executive director or a CEO will have the email come from them all the time. Now, that might sound great. You know, an email that's coming from a human being gets more opens than an email that comes from an organizational name. But human beings leave companies, they leave organizations, right? And so if an email is consistently getting opened and trust is being built because it's coming from the executive director, it's coming from a board member, well, if that person rotates out of the board or if that person leaves the organization, they're taking the open rate with you. So it's really important to just stick with a consistent name, and you can't beat your organization's name. Another tricky part with nonprofits is if you use an acronym. If you use your acronym all the time, you answer the phone with the acronym, people know you by the acronym, use the acronym. But if most people wouldn't know that acronym, then you need to come up with a creative way to display your name without an acronym. Now, if you have a really, really long name, maybe you go with an acronym, but you really need to think through the strategy across all marketing because it needs to be recognizable. The next tip is the subject line, right? So it assists that from name. So as I said, they see that familiar from name, then their eye goes down a little bit and they read the subject line. I'm going to give you a lot of tips around that. And then many tools, including Constant Contact, give you the ability to edit the pre-header text. Pre-header text is a little bit of text you see below the subject line. And if you look at my example in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the sender's name is Matco Foundation. The subject line is with a little help from our friends, and the pre-header text is that little bit of text you see below the subject line. Many people read that to decide whether the email is worthy of jumping into. Now, if you don't edit your pre-header text, it'll pull the first sentence of your email, and usually that'll be pretty good. But a tool like Constant Contact gives you the ability to edit that pre-header text, further encouraging people to open it. In this example, your donation is needed more now than ever. Now that's really clever. They cut off the sentence on purpose. Now the reader is curious. If I do what? Well, they have to open the email to find out what it is. All right, so let's break that down just a little deeper in a real world example. I have the computer screen. Here's what all those pieces look like. So the from name, this email is coming from Jack's Backyard Barbecue. Now, if they use maybe the owner's name, if they're using the owner's name, well, people may not know who that is. Who's Jack Grant? Jack Grant's the owner, but people don't know who that is. So we'd suggest, based on this kind of education, that we'd use Jack's Backyard Barbecue because it's more familiar to the audience. Make sure you use a reply to email address that's easy to contact you. So if somebody replies to that email, you want to make sure it's going into an inbox that somebody regularly checks. Next is subject line. So you want to keep it short. Ideal length is about 4 to 7 words, and then that pre-header text. You want to hook them with about 5 to 8 words. All right, so let's get a little deeper into subject line creation itself. One thing mostly for-profits do, some nonprofits do, is they repeat themselves week by week, month by month. They use the same subject line. E-newsletter tips and tricks, or e-newsletters you can use, right? E-blasts from our organization. You want to avoid those repeats because we're not incentivizing people to open it, and it starts to become white noise. People start to tune it out. Matco February update, Matco March update. Now, this is actually suffering from another sin, and that we're using this really important space to say very redundant things. We know it came from the Matco Association because the name is right above it. Look at these examples on the bottom left. The other part that's redundant is the month. People know that it's February. Why are we telling them it's February? You want to make sure you give people information that's either going to tell them literally what's in the email or encourage them through some clever word choice to open that email. My next tip, keep it short. As I said, you want to keep it brief. Try to use really powerful, one of these really 2 powerful words, you or your. Try to use you or your because now it puts the ownership of the issue, of the solution, of the thing you're talking about in their minds. You'll see some examples of that as I go further. A really great subject line to employ, and actually for me, a really easy one to do, doesn't require a whole lot of creativity, is write your subject line as a question. Questions are really powerful because the answer can only be found by opening the email. Matco Foundation, can we do more to help? Matco Association, struggling to find a perfect way to help? Matco Association, can we help you cut time? You'll notice that I employed the word you in several of those, putting that problem or that solution in their minds, but by writing that subject line as a question, we're encouraging them to answer it by opening the email. Next suggestion is alliteration. Now, this requires a little more creativity, but repeating the same first letter for each word is actually really creative. When a human being looks at a lot of information at once, we struggle to find a pattern. If we give people a pattern to latch onto, they'll pay more attention to it. It's human nature. So by purposely writing the subject line you see at the top, 7 simple solutions save season, all those S's create a pattern. And when we're moving really quickly, that pattern may be the difference between an open and a not open. I'll call attention to some of these pre-header texts as well. So we have 7 simple solutions save season. We've got what you need this season. We are ready to see how we were ambiguous there. We're using that really important pre-header text to further encourage people to open. My next tip, allusion. This is one of my favorites, but you have to make sure it works with your audience. Allusion is when you allude to something pop culture. A pop culture reference, you just have to make sure your audience will get it, and you have to obviously make sure that it's pays respect to what your organization does and what you're talking about in the email. This would not work in every case, of course. But because it's pop culture, most people would know it. Because it's familiar, they'll pay more attention to it. Let It Go is the Disney Frozen song, right? And sorry, now it's stuck in your head. Let It Go. Well, because it's so familiar, people are going to slow down. Let Them Eat Cake and Brownies. May the farce be with you. Those are all illusionary subject lines to pop culture because they're famous, because they're very noticeable. People are going to actually pay attention to them. Next tip is chunking. Chunking is purposely not writing in a subject line form. Most people write a subject, purposely not writing in sentence form. Most people write a subject line as a sentence. They can't help themselves, but there's no reason you have to. The first example, you plus us, awesome, is not really a sentence, but the fact that it's not a sentence in a sea of sentences, it will stand out because it's different. Taxes, no fun, we love them. Not a great sentence, but very powerful because it's not a sentence. Because all the other subject lines are based in a sentence form, the one that's not employed may get more notices. Now, some of you might be saying, do I do this all the time? No, you'd mix some of these examples up. Another thing you want to pay attention to is if one example gets you a higher open rate and a higher click rate. Now, just to define that in case you're new to email marketing, open rate is how many people open the email, and click rate is how many people click on links in the email. If you notice one subject line idea is getting you more opens or clicks, perhaps you employ that model more often. Numbers and lists. This is my favorite. I love this, but you have to be really creative with your content. 3 mistakes all ministries make. 7 ways to help your pet. 5 must-see films before summer. Well, the fact that there's a number is really powerful because it's finite. People know that there's a very short amount of time involved, and you pique their curiosity. Am I making one of the 3 mistakes? Well, now I have to open the email to find out. Now, you have to make sure when I say content, you have to make sure your content is numerical as well. You have to give those 3 tips. Now, a really creative thing to do is if I was say sharing 7 ways to help your pet, I might only put 3 of them in my email and encourage them to click a link to find the rest. That way, I'm kind of buttering my bread on both sides. I'm getting them to open the email and I'm driving them to the website. Remember, the website is the final destination or your registration page. You want to get them in and out of that email. Emojis. Now, I may hear some of you sighing right now. Some people love them, some people hate them, but they're very powerful in a subject line. Emojis, because they're visual, get a little more attention. And if you can find an emoji that matches what your subject line's about, all the more powerful. Spring is here, time to bike. That sun is going to get a little more attention because it's different than all the other subject lines. It's certainly something to experiment with, and I'm going to talk about testing in just a moment. All right, personalization, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Personalizing your subject line can receive a higher open rate, 11% higher open rate just by personalizing it. So putting somebody's first name or other pertinent information is a really great way to get a higher open rate. One caveat, some of you are probably shouting at your computer. You had better make sure you have that data. You certainly don't want to have use something like personalization, and a majority of the email addresses you've gotten have never submitted their first name or last name. Now, do know a tool like Constant Contact, we actually have a system where if you have the name, it'll display their name. If you're missing the name occasionally, it'll actually have a backup word that you can say such as friend or associate or volunteer. You could actually put in a substitute, a different word in case somebody's first name is missing. All right, here's some things to avoid. Check the language, all right? If you're writing something that you would see in a spam, and I can't imagine many of you would, don't use it. But you want to think through the kind of examples I'm talking about are credit card, weight loss, mortgage, savings, money. You want to avoid the kind of words you might see in a spam. You want to avoid all caps. Now, you can capitalize the first letter of each word, but don't use all caps for every letter of your subject line. That's going straight into the spam filter, and your email is obviously not getting opened. Spammers love to use all caps. Unfortunately, spammers and my mom both love to use all caps, and unfortunately, many of those emails end up in the spam filter. Avoid excessive punctuation. What do I mean by that? I mean triple exclamation points, triple question marks, ellipses. When punctuation is followed one after the other, it's a red flag to spam filters because spammers use punctuation a lot to try to cover for word choice. So they use punctuation in place of letters. You want to avoid that, and it broke my heart when I learned this because at my nonprofit, I used to use ellipses to keep my subject line short. Also avoid using symbols. Now that's not emojis, that's symbols, because spammers might use that $ to replace an S. Well, we don't want to do what they do. Always test your assumptions. So I encourage you to try some of my ideas out, but also be expected to, okay, well, this one didn't work, or expect maybe this one didn't work. Oh, I'll try this one. I'll try this one. Don't just rely on the way things have always been, and don't assume that your audience would respond to this, that, or the other. They may surprise you. I encourage you to test all of these ideas out and others, because you might find that what you assumed was wrong, or you might find what you assumed is right. You don't know unless you test it. Now, we had some comments, or sorry, not comments, but in the poll, we talked about deliverability. Let me just talk to you a little bit about deliverability, getting your email delivered. I've already covered a lot of them. Watch out for those kind of words in a subject line that might be spammy. Don't send to a list that you don't own. Don't use too many images. Make sure you follow the law, and the law in the United States is the CAN-SPAM Act. Make sure you're using a list that you own. That's really the way you get around that. On the other side, you need to make sure you use an email service provider. Now, the reason why you do that, and Constant Contact would be considered an email service provider, is when you use, let's say, Gmail or Hotmail to send out bulk email marketing. Well, that's technically illegal, because people have to have the ability to unsubscribe to an email like that, right? And if you're using Gmail, they can't unsubscribe. It's okay to send a one-off email to 1, 15, 10 people about confirmation of a call or something of that nature, but we don't want to send bulk marketing out, in the hundreds or the thousands through something like Gmail. One, it's actually really hard to do, but two, technically it's illegal. A tool like Constant Contact is whitelisted, so your email is going to get delivered because they know us. They know that we keep spammers out, and Constant Contact in our ilk have very strong email list policies, so we're actually monitoring to make sure spammers don't get in and ruin our reputation. And you want to make sure that the tool you're using is compliant with the United States law and the laws of the world, and of course Constant Contact is. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, hello.
Hi, Matt. This is Scott. So, no, I just wanted to say thank you for this really, great, wonderful, helpful insights into all of this here, into the nonprofit email messaging. A lot of takeaways here to make note of. So, I also wanted to just make a quick reminder: if you have questions, you can submit them into the question box on your control panel as we go along. And now, let me pass this over here. So we're going to turn this over to Sarah, Sarah Baker from MobileCause, to hear more on how to more deeply connect with supporters through mobile messaging. So make sure you have your mobile phones handy, as there's going to be some interactive elements here, some fun stuff as part of the presentation. So Sarah, floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott and Matthew. So a really great supplement to your email marketing campaigns and social media campaigns you're doing is going to be mobile marketing. But something we've seen at MobileCause is a lot of our nonprofits are reluctant to start sending text messages to their supporters for a number of reasons. They worry that text and mobile is only for younger generations. But in reality, according to surveys, 66% of baby boomers currently send text messages. They're worried that their supporters might find text messages, something usually so personal to their friends and family, to be invasive and opt out. But again, the reality is once supporters subscribe to start receiving your text messages, the average opt-out rate is typically only 1 to 2% after you send that first text message to them. Another concern is if they have permission to text those donors. So a really important thing to know as a nonprofit is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act enables you to send text messages to your existing database without having an opt-in first. You might also worry, well, in my existing database, I don't have phone numbers, or at the time I collected them, I didn't ask if they were mobile. Well, when you upload your phone numbers into MobileCause, we'll verify the numbers for you to ensure that you can know which numbers on your list are mobile that you can send text messages to. Another concern you may have is what to use mobile messaging for. But mobile messaging is an incredibly powerful tool for communications, providing basic updates, sharing that great content that you're going to be working on to support your email marketing campaigns on your website. It's a great tool for giving, allowing you to use text to donate at campaigns and live in-person events, sending out donation reminders, and of course, one of the most important things you do as a nonprofit, thanking your donors. Unlike social media where your algorithms might put that post later on, text messages and mobile messaging are convenient and immediate, so your donors and supporters are going to see those right away when they check their phone or look down at their Apple Watch. So let's talk about using mobile messaging in particular for communication and how this might work for your nonprofit. So with your text message, you can do a variety of things. This is a great way for you to send organizational updates. This is part of your storytelling. Share your progress, your setbacks, the impact your organization is having in your community. And of course, one of the most compelling things, personal stories about your organization and about your mission. Thinking back to making your messages convenient and timely, use it as a communication tool for things such as disaster alerts, volunteer opportunities, and of course, sending inspirational messages to inspire your supporters to give back to your mission and participate in your nonprofit. Similar to email, a text message is going to be much more well received if you include the recipient's name in it. So have that as part of the text message. Say, hey, Sarah, this is what we've been doing lately, and I'm more likely to listen and know that you're listening to me. And of course, you want to provide links and content so they can learn more about your organization. While a text message is typically kept to a certain amount of characters, you can link with powerful images and videos, links back to your website and social media so they can continue to learn more about your organization and about your mission and how they can get involved. Another one of the reasons that text messaging is so powerful compared to a lot of the other marketing you're going to be doing is text messages have a 98% open rate. And 90% of those text messages are read within 3 minutes of being sent. So again, think about messaging, text messaging in particular, as a supplement to things that you're doing on your email and on your social media channels by making sure that they're going to see part of your message. Think of it similarly to your subject line. Another great way you can use text messages are for inbound data requests. So this is where you allow your supporters to text in. So they'll have a keyword where they can text in to do things like request info. So they can request a brochure, which you can send to them as a link. They can request your hours, directions, any information that's particular to an event, volunteer information, or visiting your facility. You can have them sign up to subscribe to your email list, get daily encouragements and reminders, and learn more about your volunteer opportunities. You can have them text in to provide you some additional information. So maybe that's completing a survey, signing their name to a petition, or becoming a member of your organization. We've also seen organizations and nonprofits use this just to have fun. So link to a fun video, a giveaway, a coupon. At events, something cool you can do is have people text in to enter a raffle, or maybe text in for a free cocktail at your next gala. Even have them text in to learn trivia about your organization or related to your mission in some way or another. So now comes the interactive part of the presentation. So Scott mentioned earlier, we'd love for you to have your phones out actually during this webinar. So we're just gonna try doing one of these inbound text messages. So if everybody wants to take out their cell phone and start a new text message. So that text message you're going to send to the number 51555. And we're gonna do a quick little fact check Just checking how you're listening in so far. So we're going to fact check, are the majority of Americans able to send and receive text messages? So now in that text message body, where you're sending the text to 51555, you're going to text your answer. So you can text in correct or incorrect. And the fact we're checking is the majority of Americans can send and receive text messages. So I'll give everybody a minute. And again, we are sending that text message to 51555 and texting correct or incorrect to the majority of Americans can send and receive text messages. Okay, hopefully everyone's had a chance to send that quick little message, but if you didn't, maybe you put your phone away so you'd be paying tip-top attention to the webinar. Let's see what that looks like. So if you sent the word correct, the response you should have received is, that's right, 81% of adults own a smartphone. Stay tuned to learn more. But maybe you weren't so sure and you texted incorrect. Now this has a different response. It's more common than you think. 81% of adults own a smartphone. Stay tuned to learn more. So thank you guys for participating and let's learn more. So again, mobile messaging is a really great communication tool, and one of the groups you typically need to have a lot of communication with that's very convenient in timing is texting with your volunteers. You can use mobile messaging before and after volunteers to keep these supporters motivated. So ahead of a volunteer event, send out a schedule, send out location, instructions on maybe what you need to wear. Maybe they need to have proper footwear or bring a packed lunch. You need to make sure your volunteers are aware of all these things. Give them directions, or maybe there's a weather incident and you need to push the volunteer date. Text messages are a great immediate way to send this information to your volunteers. Post-event, of course, one of the most important things to do is say thank you. So send a link to a video with a thank you message from your CEO or from your board, maybe even from the beneficiaries of your organization. And then continue to talk with your volunteers. Send them regular updates, again, on your mission's progress and invitations to participate in your future volunteer events in overall galas and luncheons and everything that your organization is doing, as this is an audience that's very interested in staying a part of your mission and staying a part of your nonprofit. So speaking about galas, luncheons, dinners, Dancing with the Stars events, you can use text messages as a way to communicate with all of your attendees, sponsors, event volunteers. So again, the text messages are immediate and timely. So you can send event details ahead of time, send a link to sell tickets, or maybe just collect registration and RSVP information. Ensure that you have enough vegetarian or kosher meals at your event, and send pertinent details like parking directions and driving instructions. During your event, maybe you're having a very large event where people are spread out. Why not use text messages to communicate with them? You know they have their phones or are wearing their watches. So share instructions on how they can check into the event, send quick reminders to your volunteers on where they need to be, encourage people to participate in your auction, and even sell them raffle tickets directly by pushing out a link to your raffle ticket sales form. Post-event, anyone who hasn't completed their donation, remind them to fulfill. Give them an update on how much money you were able to raise at the event. And of course, thank and acknowledge everyone who attended, who donated and participated. Thank your volunteers, and send images and videos. Send out a link to your Facebook page where you've uploaded an album from your latest gala, or send out a YouTube video that shows what happened at your event for everyone who attended and those who weren't able to attend. So aside from communication, so just sending out those reminders, you can use mobile messaging to support your nonprofit and encourage giving from your biggest supporters. So one of the main ways we see people use this is our text to donate fundraising campaigns. So of course you want to meet your donors where they are. So we talked earlier about everyone reading their emails on their cell phone. Well, they're doing almost everything on their cell phone these days, looking at social media, reading their emails, checking things for work on Slack. So let's meet our donors where they are by using text to donate. This can be done in a variety of different ways. Use peer-to-peer fundraising to include ambassadors as part of your fundraising efforts. These ambassadors have their own text to donate keyword and shortcode that they can share with their friends and family to link to their personalized crowdfunding pages where they are fundraising on your behalf as part of your mission. Use text to donate keywords when you're using video, for example, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. As you're streaming your event or running even a virtual campaign, have people text to donate. So create a video using a compelling message, and at the end of that video, make your verbal call to action with your text to donate keyword to make it quick and easy for them to text in, get a link to your donation form, and support your organization. Another great way to use the text to donate is using radio and TV and even live events. So as we prepare for fall fundraising and holiday fundraising, use a text to donate keyword to have people donate, whether they're listening in to their favorite radio show, participating in one of your telethons, or sitting at one of your breakfasts or dinners. Make it really easy for them to take out their phone, text in that keyword, quickly fill out a form, and make a donation to support your organization and its mission. So moving into live events are a really great place to have text to donate because it's really easy to create a moment in your live event at the emotional high point of the event where you're going to make that call to action. So at your event, this can be the highlight of the evening. You're going to stop everything, have a text to donate keyword with a call to action from your main speaker, whether that's a local celebrity, a beneficiary of your organization, or your CEO. They can do a call to action with their text to donate keyword, while behind them, you can use your fundraising thermometer. On this fundraising thermometer, you're going to be able to recognize all your donors instantaneously, celebrate any milestones that you reach in your fundraising, and definitely celebrate any of your major gifts donors at the event. So again, I'd love if we want to just quickly try this to see what it's like when you're texting in live at an event like a gala, luncheon, or dinner. So what we're going to do again is just take out our cell phones, start a new text message, and that text message is going to the number 41444. And in that text message body, we're going to type the keyword NPO event, all one word, not case sensitive. Again, it's NPO event, a space, the amount we're pretend donating, so this is not an actual donation, a space, and then your name. And this is going to allow you to see what your donors would experience. We also just sent over a link so you can see the live thermometer. So I'll give everyone a second to text in. And again, you're sending that text message to 41444. And in your message body, typing NPO event, a space, your amount, and your name. So you can see on the screen what that looks like again if you're unable to text in yourself. And once you send in that text, you're going to get an auto response momentarily saying, thank you for supporting organization. Click here to complete. And it's a link to a donation form. So this is a really great way, again, to use text messaging at a live event and making it really easy for your donors to participate without having to bother necessarily with pledge cards, and even giving you the ability to send automated reminders for your donors to fulfill those donations later on. So again, on our chat box, you should be able to see a link where you can click over and go to the thermometer, where you'll be able to see your name like you would at an event. So these donation reminders that I mentioned earlier, if you did text in, you will start receiving these reminders, which is really great for you just to get an idea of how the MobileCause system works with mobile messaging at an event. So we see fulfillment reminders help you fulfill 87% more of your gifts. These are sent automatically, so you don't have to worry about them after event, so you can focus on sending thank yous, updates, and your supporters are really going to appreciate these kind of updates after they have attended your event. They want to know how much you raised and what you were able to accomplish. So we see 76% of supporters appreciate these kinds of messaging post-event. So just to run down some of our mobile messaging pro tips, you want to, of course, collect phone numbers so you have people to send outbound text messages to. So you need to create a compelling reason for them to get text messages. With text messages, you also want to be aware of when you're sending these. So send text messages during the day when people are active, but also think about when they're going to be looking at their phone, maybe taking a break from their computer, from their day. But be cognizant of time zones if your organization works across the country. Don't spam. Make sure you're only sending text messages to people familiar with your organization. So similar to what Matthew brought up earlier, you don't want to be sharing lists of phone numbers and text messaging people who maybe have never heard of you. You want to think about communicating with an open, receptive, and friendly audience. Be strategic in your text messages. We talk about using text messages for donations, but only ask for donations after sending compelling messages that are indirectly showcasing why people should give and support your organization and its mission. Similar to email marketing, we're typically going to want to segment our donors. So segment into demographic, giving level, and interest, things that you know about your donors and supporters to help increase engagement. So again, I would really just want to think about text messaging as a really great supplement to everything that you're already doing. So this is going to be supporting your email campaigns, supporting your social media campaigns. And all in all, we really hope that we were better able to help you connect with those supporters to ultimately help you raise more money for your cause. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, thank you, Matthew and Sarah, for sharing such valuable information. We really hope that you're all inspired to just jump into your email and mobile messaging efforts and really get creative with how your content and mission can reach donors in influential ways. And we encourage you to keep experimenting and keep testing. Now, before we jump into our Q&A, we just want to take a quick poll here just to get a feel for the room essentially here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll to see, did you like what you hear? You want some more information? You can check one or both and let us know here. All right, let's see, get some more of you involved here. If you can go ahead and fill that poll. All right, so we'll go ahead and close this up. Got some good responses here, so thank you for that. So let's see here. So just in our questions here, we'll go ahead and we've got like one or two questions here. Was real quick. One for Matthew. I just wanted to quickly ask in our last minute or so. I had a question about the best practices for personalization. Do you want it on the where's the best place for it? Subject line, the pre-header text, in the copy. Where's the best way to do that?
Unfortunately, it's going to depend. I would, without looking at each individual case, my first suggestion would be, if anywhere, the subject line, because if you get them into the email and the body is, kept succinct like I suggested, and it's a strong, tight email that's going to get them to the website really quickly or get them to the donation page or whatever you're trying to get them to do, that's probably the best place if it's an either or. Personally, I use both. If I'm going to decide to employ personalization, and it's not something I would do all the time because it's so impactful, we don't want to go to the well too often. But when I do employ it, I usually employ both the subject line and the body. Right now, you can't personalize the pre-header text. So I would use the subject line and the body to really reinforce that it's them that we're asking to help, and really put the, for lack of a better word, ownership upon the subscriber, because we want them to really feel either empowered or feel that they can contribute to this cause. I would actually use it in both. But if it was an either or, I'd go with subject line first. Great question.
Okay, great, thanks. So looking at our time, we are at the top of the hour, so I want to first off thank everyone. If you do have additional questions that are not answered today, you can email marketing@mobilecause.com, and really that's what we have for today. That's the time we have. So if you're interested in discovering how to accelerate your fundraising and raise more funds with less time and effort, please fill out our post-webinar survey or visit www.mobilecause.com. And to partner with Constant Contact and receive a 50% off your first 3 months, visit the link on the slide and enter the code MobileCause and user. Again, I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, and I really wish you the best of luck in all of your messaging, communications, and fundraising efforts. We really look forward to seeing you again next month at our Giving Tuesday webinar. So with that, have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.